Okay, welcome everyone. This is Joe Armstrong, and the October, being held in November, Power Systems Virtual User Group webinar. So big topic today, AIX 7.3. So here we've termed it AIX Trends and Directions, but we announced AIX 7.3, so we'll be covering a lot of that today. We have 3 different speakers, which we're going to go to, so I'll be introducing them in a minute. I've turned on the record, so this session is being recorded, and the presentation materials are on the Power Systems Virtual User Group wiki. I'll throw a link out in the chat session eventually. So there is both a Q&A. Oh, one second. I had a timer on, and that was going to be going off in the background. Didn't need that. There is presentation materials I set out on the wiki, and I'll be throwing a link through the replay out there as soon as I get it up. Now, there's both in this a Q&A chat, Q&A frame, and a chat frame. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A panel. Chat all you want in the chat panel, that's great. But if you actually have questions that you'd like us to answer, please try and put them in the Q&A panel, because I think that's where we'll be watching them. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about AIX 7.3 and in general trends and directions of AIX. So we have 3 speakers, Maria Ward, Dr. Brian Veal, and Carl Burnett. And my daddy always told me that we should start with the ladies, so I'll go ahead and introduce Maria first. You probably heard Maria. She's been on here before. She's the offering manager for AIX as part of the cognitive systems offering team. Maria is responsible for driving the overall AIX software strategy to support and innovate all the needs of the AIX community and our clients, also while embracing all the new industry trends and technologies that IBM comes up with for the future. So as part of that, Maria works pretty closely with the development teams, as both the software development teams and the power hardware development managers and the offering managers to build our total end-to-end portfolio that provides the infrastructure for all the mission-critical workloads that you all put on here. So second, we're going to introduce Dr. Brian Veal. Dr. Veal is a senior software engineer with IBM Cognitive Systems. He's in Austin, Texas. Brian actually started his career with the Airborne Warning and Control System, AWACS, for the U.S. Air Force. He is a GAN, G-A-A-N-N fellow, and lecturer and teaching courses in computer science and electrical and computer engineering at the University of Oklahoma, where he got his PhD. That was in 2005. In 2006, he joined IBM and has been the majority of his career as the lead architect for AIX, focusing on support, exploitation of the platform, the processor, the chip features, all the things built into the hardware. Brian's received the IBM Outstanding Technical Achievement Award for his work in Power 8 and transactional memory, and he's a member of IEEE and the ACM, Association of Computing Machinery. So great person to have on here telling us all about AIX. And last but not least, Carl Burnett. Carl's a distinguished engineer with IBM Cognitive Systems. Carl's been on our webinars before. Over his career, he's worked on multiple systems software projects, including AIX kernel, distributed computing frameworks, operating system security, scalable distributed file systems, and others. His current responsibilities are defining the technical strategy and the development plans for our Power Systems software products, with major focus areas on include the cloud and enhanced power virtualization for the flexible infrastructure integration. So Carl's also deeply involved in all of this. So between the 3 of them, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience here as far as AIX and other parts of Power. So we're really happy to have them. Now, I think Maria and Brian are going to be doing most of the talking on this. Carl's going to be answering questions in the background. So please feel free to type in your questions, and we'll get them all answered. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Maria and Brian.
Okay, thank you for that great introduction, Joe. Yeah, as you mentioned, we will talk a lot about AIX 7.3, although we do have some trends and directions that we want to make sure we discuss as well. We have had a lot of exciting announcements around AIX this year. You know, just a little bit more of my my background, I actually started out with AIX around the Power 4 timeframe. And at that time we were really focusing on the new technology, which was DL-PAR. So that was, one of the big things that I worked on for a while, and making sure that was rock solid. So I've seen a lot of changes throughout the years since then. And I know that a lot of these technologies have become really critical and important to our customers. As we started talking about the 35th anniversary of AIX this year, a lot of this came out. What are the features that were most important? But anyway, it's been it's been really exciting this year to really hear from all our customers on how AIX has really helped their business. And I'm really excited to be able to now announce the new version of AIX this year, the new release, AIX 7.3. So I will go over the overall strategy and roadmap, and then we'll do, Brian will go into more of a deep dive on AIX 7.3, some of the technical features, and then I'll talk a little bit more about our bundles and licensing, and then go into some of the strategic initiatives, and then I do have some resources included as well just to share. So again, thank you everybody for joining, and if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A there. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our overall AIX strategy. I just wanted to share this just to get us kicked off here. So AIX has always been the high value platform for running core business workloads. Some of the things that we've excelled in over the years that our customers love about AIX are the performance capabilities, the scalability, security, high availability and continuous computing, and the overall investment protection that AIX provides for our customers. So with 7.3, we'll take you through the enhancements and kind of highlight how we are strengthening these attributes even more. So we've done a lot to improve performance. We'll talk about Power 10. That's the new system, which I understand was the topic of the last bug session in September. So that is a much larger system. So AIX will be the release. 7.3 will be the release that will enable you to scale up to the full capacity. We've also done a lot of changes in the security area and a lot of enhancements there, since the security is really important. That we know that everybody is really looking at how to improve security. So we'll go over all those core strengths. On the right side of the chart are some of the strategic directions that we've been following for the last several years. So if you've seen a previous version of this chart, this one looks slightly different. We will continue to modernize with open technology. So we started our AIX toolbox, I think 4 or 5 years ago, as a separate way for customers to get open source products that have been ported to AIX. We're now integrating more of that into the base AIX distribution. We're also continuing to focus on admin and automation tools such as Ansible, and we are making sure AIX is ready for the new compilers. In particular, we announced a new version of an open Excel compiler in September, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. The bottom of the chart, AIX is ready for hybrid cloud. So we want to make sure that our clients can run on-prem if they need to, or off-prem in IBM Cloud or through an MSP if needed. So on-prem, we have our Enterprise Edition or Enterprise Cloud Edition bundles that can be used to set up your own private cloud, or we have our Power Private Cloud with dynamic capacity offering as well. And then off-prem, we have our Power Virtual Server. So AIX and Power 10 together combined ensure that our clients can be ready for hybrid cloud. What's a little bit new on this chart is the Enterprise AI box. Previously, we have been focusing on AI. That was part of the open technology box that you see there. But with the introduction of the Power 10 system and the MMA that's built in, the matrix math, I can't remember, my mind just went blank on that, but with the MMA accelerator, I guess, you can bring AI closer to the data. So we really want to try to leverage that, since AIX is the operating system that runs and that contains the databases that contain all of our customers' critical data. So operationalizing AI inferencing directly on the Power 10 processor will bring that AI closer to the data. And with that, you get the advantages of the platform as well, the reliability, availability, and everything, keeping that data on the platform. So we have several areas that we're focusing on there. In Power inferencing, enabling what we call AI sidecars, where you can have AI workloads running co-located with AIX on the same system, but running separately, with, and then being able to access that data and those workloads from the AIX Power. And then we continue to focus on enhancing and adding more open AI frameworks into AIX, into the toolbox. So we have updated the strategy paper. This was updated during the summer, I think around June or July timeframe. So if you have not seen that yet, I would recommend that you go download that and take a look at that. That'll give you more information on our overall AIX strategy. Okay, next slide. Okay, so AIX is the platform for mission critical workloads, but you can extend the value and the core strengths of AIX with the full suite of Power Systems software to provide a complete end-to-end enterprise level software stack on top of your Power hardware. So the system that you see over there on the right is the new Power E1080, but the software portfolio contains the capabilities to provide the virtualization. Power VM and Power VC provide flexibility for your virtualized environments. Power VC is included on every Power system and enables the virtualization and mobility between the platforms. A lifecycle management product or tool that enables you to quickly deploy your own private cloud through a web-based interface. Power HA and the VM Recovery Manager provide solutions to address your concerns around high availability and disaster recovery. With the Power HA designed for business critical operations that cover both the HA of the software and the hardware, and then the VM Recovery Manager providing the VM restart capabilities for the system itself, or the LPAR itself. What's new on this slide is Power SC 2.0. Previously, we had two Power SC, which stands for security compliance. We had a standard edition and a multi-factor authentication edition. There were two separate products, but we have combined that now into a single package, Power SC 2.0. So this enhances security across your entire stack by sitting on top of your AIX part to simplify management, ensure compliance across the data center through a user-friendly interface. So I won't go into too much detail on these things. I believe that these have been previous topics of the virtual user group in the past. I just wanted to kind of highlight that we have been enhancing and working together with all the different products here to provide that full end-to-end solution on Power 10 or on Power in general. Okay, next slide. So this is just a high-level look at the IBM Power E1080, the first of the Power 10 family. This was announced back in September, and then we'll have more models coming out over the next 2 years or so. The main reason I wanted to show this slide is that there are 4 key pillars here of the Power 10 system. The respond faster to business demands, protecting your data from core to cloud, streamlining insights and automation, and maximizing availability and reliability. So what you see there is a lot of the attributes. This is a high level, a P10 slide specifically. So a lot of these are hardware related attributes. But the main reason for sharing this is that AIX 7.3 and the rest of the Power software family updates that have been made recently are designed to support these 4 pillars. So this is probably going to be a common theme that you'll see, when you hear about AIX and these other products. Again, all designed to support the Power 10 family. So most of the attributes on the slide are hardware related, but we'll take you through each of these pillars and show the enhancements that AIX has made to support and take advantage of the Power 10 technology. A few things on the slide that are, that I do want to point out are, with Power 10, IBM has achieved a massive performance per core improvements over the competitors, and two of these things here were run with AIX. A highlight is the 2.5 second rate results per core for general purpose computing. And another one was the SAP SD two-tier benchmark, which shows a 4x improvement in SAPs per core versus the best, Intel system. So those are a couple things that AIX directly was involved in. We those were just want to mention those were run with the previous version of AIX because 7.3 is currently not yet available, but we showed great results, with AIX in general. Another area here is the streamlining insights and automation. So, because of this new matrix math accelerators that are on each chip, this is an area that AIX you'll really on this year, for AIX and how we can take advantage of those MMAs. Okay. Okay, so again, we will go over each of these pillars. Brian's going to take us through the AIX enhancements for 7.3 and how they line up with each of these Power 10 pillars. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our AIX release streams chart. So what you see now is the addition of the 7.3 row at the top. So back in February, we issued a statement of direction with our intent to deliver a new AIX release, AIX 7.3, later this year. So now that we've announced this back in October, 2 weeks ago, we now show this on the roadmap with the life cycle, extending out through 2034, 2035 timeframe, based on the typical full life cycle of the product, which expands from, the current marketing and support through service and fee-based service extensions and everything. But AIX 7.3 and AIX will be around for a long time. This also aligned with the 35th anniversary. I think we talked about that earlier in the VUG back in March when we last spoke to the group. So we're excited, to be celebrating that 35 years of innovation with AIX. So 7.2, of course, will become our, what we call N-1 release. It will continue to be marketed and supported through, for many more years as well. These are just kind of estimated, time frames here that you see on this slide. Our general strategy for AIX is to always have 2 releases in marketing and available at any time. That way customers have a choice of what AIX version they want to run on or they need to run on for various reasons. So 7.2 and 7.3 will be the 2 major releases in marketing and available. 7.1, which has been out for quite a long time now, we have announced end of marketing for 7.1. That was announced 2 weeks ago in October. So what that basically means is that it's no longer orderable, but based on our life cycle strategy, will still be available for many more years. We will provide service for a minimum of one year. It turns out it's about a little over a year where we'll continue to service 7.1, and then after that, it goes into extended support mode, and then web support mode, as well. So there's many more years of 7.1. It basically gives clients time to move off of 7.1 and onto one of the newer releases if needed. So I've included the links to the announcement letters at the bottom of the page there, as well as our AIX support lifecycle page. The other thing I want to point out on this slide is the chart at the bottom right of the box. This is our support for power system platforms. What you can see here, if you just look down the right side of the chart, is AIX 7.3 is supported on Power 8, 9, and 10, and then in native mode and on those platforms. And then if you look at the bottom row, the Power 10 row, you can see that Power 10 supports each of these active releases as well. So 7.1 will run on Power 10 in virtual mode only, so through the virtualized I/O, and it will run in Power 8 mode. 7.2 will run on Power 10 in Power 9 mode, and then 7.3 runs, of course, on Power 10 in native mode. So that is the release. 7.3 is the release that will run in native mode on Power 10 only. So, okay.
Hey, Maria.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Carl. One of the questions on the chat is there an announcement letter for the end of marketing for 7.1?
Yes, there is. If you look at the links on the bottom left, the second one there is the announcement letter for the end of marketing. So that includes standard edition, enterprise edition, and another thing, you know, DSO as well, since that now is included in 7.2 and 7.3 by default. So that's no longer going to be available to be purchased separately, since there's really no need for it. Okay. All right. We can go to the next slide then. So this is a view of the current active versions and the Power System platform support. So it's just a little bit different view of the same information, more down to the server level and the machine type model level. So this information is available on the System to AIX Maps website for the official support information, and I've included the link there at the bottom. But in case you know, any of you were not aware of that, I just wanted to highlight that. This is not a current support statement, of course, as you know, some of these platforms are out of support now. 5, 6, and 7, you know, are out of support, but this just shows the original support and then you know, the current supported active versions. So 7.3 will run on all the Power 8, 9, and 10 systems, with the exception of the CS models. That was the hyper-converged system that we had out. 7.3 will not support that. 7.2 runs on 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then you can see 7.1 was supported all the way back to Power 5. So just a little bit different view of the information. And again, as always, you know, the official place is the System to AIX Maps site. Okay. Next slide, please. So before we dive into the technical details of 7.3, I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of a timeline of you know, what we've done this year and where we are today, and you know, what we have coming, you know, through the rest of the year. So as I mentioned, we issued the 7.3 Statement of Direction in February, along with the 35th anniversary. So there's a lot of excitement around this announcement, and you know, the celebrating of 35 years of innovation. It's been incredible to see all of the comments on LinkedIn about, you know, people's stories about their first, you know, AIX version that they worked on, and you know, how it's really helped change their business over the years. You know, which features and enhancements they like the best, or that, you know, have helped them the best. So we've done a lot around that this year, you know, celebrating of this 35th anniversary. We have the new modernized AIX application icon that you can kind of see in that little 35 years icon in the middle of the slide there. We brought back the certification programs for AIX, Power HA and Power VC, and we have more to come there as well. So, you know, with all the excitement around 7.3, you know, customers are really asking when they could get a hold of it, when could they get their hands on it. So we kicked off an open beta program earlier in October. This provides early access to AIX 7.3, as well as the new open Excel compilers that I mentioned earlier as well. So as part of the open beta, customers or anybody customer, if you're just a hobbyist and you just like AIX, you can get access to 7.3 and the new compiler as well. This is open to all users. You can run on-prem if you have spare resources on your Power Systems, Power 8 and up, or off-prem and Power Virtual Server. So we know that some people may not have spare resources on their Power System, so we have several incentives offered so that customers can try this 7.3 open beta on in the cloud. So there's a $5,000 credit. If you have a seller or business partner, you can work with them to get a $5,000 credit to try AIX on Power Virtual Server. And if you don't have a seller, or if you don't want to go that route, there's $1,500 of credits that you can get through an online promo code. No seller needed in that case. For both of these, or for all of these options, you can sign up at the link at the bottom. The open beta is still open. We're going to have it run through the end of January, and so you can still take part in that and participate in that if you'd like. We're also offering special access for our software vendor partners, our ISVs. We have Technology Zone. I think we were formerly calling it Garage, the IBM Garage. I think it's now the Technology Zone. But we have resources there as well. So if you are a software vendor and are interested in certifying or exploring 7.3, you can get access there. And again, if you sign up for that link at the bottom, we'll provide more information on that as well. And so all of this is really leading up to the December 10th GA of 7.3, which we're really excited about. So again, this will align with the Power 10 pillars. We're going to go through all those details here shortly. Another thing I wanted to mention, though, is that we really value our customer feedback and requests. So we have a very active request for enhancement program, or RFE program. And we've taken 31 of those high value RFEs and incorporated them into 7.3. So the way the RFE program works is you can vote on ideas that you think are important or would be of most value. And so again, we've taken 31 RFEs with over 450 votes across those RFEs and incorporated them into 7.3. So with that, next slide, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Brian at this point.
Right. Thank you, Maria. So as Maria mentioned, I'll talk about specifics around AIX 7.3 features. To begin with, 7.3, as Maria mentioned, continues to follow our strategic focuses and is built on a foundation of deep platform integration and investment protection. It delivers new innovation in continuous computing, ensuring that you have minimum downtime and can scale environments quickly, allowing you to respond to business demands faster. There's also a focus on enterprise AI, which Maria spoke about, and she'll present a little bit more on AI later in the presentation. And we've expanded our automation capabilities with Ansible and open technology. And we're adding new features around security with protection of data at rest and in flight. And 7.3 is also ready for out of the box, ready for hybrid cloud. And of course, we're continuing our long-standing commitment to binary compatibility. And is supported with 7.3 so that you can run applications written for older versions of OS on AIX 7.3. And it runs on Power 8 and Power 9 and Power 10 systems, and we'll continue with future systems as we go along. Next, let's talk about the various improvements in 7.3. We'll start with continuous computing. We've made some exciting improvements around the area of live DL-PAR addition of large amounts of processor cores and RAM to running LPARs. And you can see here the results we have here are preliminary results from development lab tests with pre-GA Power 10 hardware. And we are working on getting results with actual GA hardware and software that will become available later. This particular feature is especially important for environments using technology like enterprise pools. And we actually have customers doing this, where you have a secondary system with a minimal amount of resources assigned to it or entitled, and you want to use that as a failover site where you can quickly scale up resources when when a system or an LPAR goes down and you want to fail over to that system. So this is a significant reduction in the amount of time that it takes to add cores and RAM to the system. Along with that, we have reduced the amount of time it takes to boot AIX on AIX 7.3. And this is especially beneficial to LPARs with multi-terabytes of RAM. In fact, on the Power 10 system itself, there have been changes made across the firmware stack as well to reduce how long it takes to IPL machine, power it on, and bring up to the point where you can deploy an LPAR and bring up an operating system on it. So this continues to extend that benefit through AIX boot. There were also efforts made in Linux to do this as well. And I do want to note that these features we're talking about here, they are all software-based features. The DLPAR improvements and AIX boot time improvements are also available on Power 8 and Power 9 systems. Of course, the results that you may see with them might be slightly different than what's shown here. We've also updated, made some changes to AIX Live Update around the area of boot time settings, or what we call tunables. There are a set of tunables in AIX that require you to set them and then reboot the LPAR for them to take effect. And now for a set of those tunables, you can set the tunable and mark it as a tunable that can be updated across the live update operation. And then on the next live update operation, the tunable value will change. Of course, live update actually creates another LPAR in the system, which we call the surrogate LPAR, and it boots the new OS level on that LPAR. So the tunables change during that boot process on the surrogate LPAR. So that'll make it a little bit easier to apply tunable changes as you do live update operations with 7.3. In 7.3, we've also increased the default password security using a new salted SHA-256 algorithm, as well as longer password support up to 255 characters, and a stronger default password policy. And when you first log into 7.3, with the new install, you will see these defaults in place, and it will make you apply a stronger password than you may have used in the past, just for an initial install. We've also worked in 7.3 to remove packages that have weaker security properties, such as FTP and Telnet. Those packages are not installed by default, although in the install process, especially if you go through the install menus off of the ISO install, you can choose to install them if you wish to. And then through the other methods of install, you can also choose to install them if you need them. But they will not be installed by default. Last year, we released a feature that supports encryption of logical volumes. And this year, we've extended that to include also root volume group and dump devices. So you can use logical volume encryption in more places now. We've also made improvements to IPsec. And for system trace, in the last year, couple of years, we had restricted most of system trace such that it required root privilege. And now we've completely restricted it with the change to system trace channel 0. Now requires root privilege by default. Of course, you can change those defaults and allow other users to run trace if you want to. And then SendMail also supports SASL authentication in 7.3 as well. We've also made enhancements around leveraging infrastructure and optimizing the system for workloads. 7.3 can scale up to 240 cores which is the largest Denali configuration that'll be available later this year. And with SMT8, that's up to 1,920 hardware threads in a single LPAR on Power 10. We've also increased the maximum JFS2 file system and file size. The new supported maximum value is 128 terabytes, although we have the code theoretically supports up to 4 petabyte file systems and file sizes, but we've tested it and qualified up to 128 terabytes. And in the future, we will continue to test larger sizes and increase that supported maximum value. We've also made improvements in the area of gzip compression with AIX. We'll talk a little bit about how gzip performs on Power 10 versus Power 9 in a second. But I want to mention that 7.3 comes out of the box ready to exploit hardware gzip. This includes the zlib NX library that we created that is compatible with the software-based zlib library, as well as the pigz command, which we have ported to AIX previously and can use the hardware gzip accelerator transparently under the covers. So as long as your LPAR is configured to use the gzip compression accelerator, it's in Power 9 mode or Power 10 mode, the pigz command will automatically use that, and that command is installed by default with 7.3. There's also a create OVA command on AIX. They'll create OVA files from for deployment in the cloud from a make.sysv file, and that has support for hardware gzip as well. It uses the pigz command to compress those images as they're created, and by default, if the accelerator is available there, it will get that compression acceleration. Also, 7.3 is ready for the new OpenXL compilers for Power 10, and 7.3 is enabled to exploit the matrix math accelerate unit on Power 10. The MMA unit is part of the base Power 10 instruction set, and 7.3 supports the Power 10 instruction set. So software that wants to take advantage of that can take advantage of new libraries, or where you can write new code to take advantage of the MMA unit. So those applications that choose to do that will be supported on 7.3 with AIX on Power 10. We've also made enhancements in areas in the kernel and lower space routines like memcopy and memmove to utilize new Power 10 instructions. And we've seen significant speed ups in the performance of memcopy operations as well as memmove. We did this in conjunction with a lot of work to optimize the OpenXL compilers on AIX for Power 10. With async I/O and low latency storage, such as NVMe, you can see up to 2 times the IOPS than you see with 7.2. We also now have TCP cubic support for high latency networks where you have a lot of traffic or contention on the network. The TCP cubic algorithm can help deal with that type of environment, and it's controlled through a tunable through the NO command in AIX 7.3. 7.3 is also ready for Ansible with Python 3.9. So we've upgraded the version of Python that comes with 7.3 to 3.9 to ensure that it stays current, since the previous versions have gone out of support. And also a popular request from a lot of customers is to support Bash on the system. Bash 5.1 now comes with AIX 7.1. It's installed by default, and you can use it as an available shell on 7.3. We wanted to take a moment and talk about how compression performance, what we've seen on Power 10 with the tests that we've been able to run so far. The slide here on the left shows raw hardware compression performance. And this is comparing P9 against P10 with compression acceleration. So in red here, you see P9 running AIX 7.2. And then in green is P10 running in P9 mode on 7.3. And then finally, the blue bar is P10 mode with AIX 7.3. There is a change in the GZIP compression capabilities available on the platform with Power 10. You can now access the accelerator directly, where you can directly send requests and receive them from the accelerator without going through the hypervisor. And if you look at this, you can see actually in some places there's about a 6x improvement performance from the P9 hardware to P10 hardware with AIX 7.3 taking advantage of the new user mode access. The performance does vary. What we see is that as we move up to larger data packet sizes that we're sending to the accelerator, we'll see more benefits generally because there's less overhead in doing the compression in the accelerator versus what it takes to do that in software. And the other thing I want to point out that's not shown here, but one of the big benefits you get from the accelerator is that since you're sending the data off to the accelerator, you're not processing it in software on the processor core, on the processor itself. So it saves you a lot of CPU usage as well. Now on the right side, this shows the PIGZ command compared against the GZIP command. There's 3 flavors shown here. GZIP running purely in software in orange or red, and PIGZ running with the standard zlib library, which is also running software. And you'll see that PIGZ itself, just out of the box with no acceleration, performs better than GZIP because it does the GZIP operations in parallel, whereas GZIP does them one at a time. And then PIGZ accelerated to use the accelerator on Power 10, you can see gets a significant boost over even the software-based PIGZ as well. So we hope that you'll try out these commands on 7.3. We are working to extend the usage of it in AIX. As I mentioned, we have the PIGZ command. The create OVA command uses PIGZ. The SFTP and SSH and AIX uses the accelerator when you configure it properly to compress data across, for example, SFTP operations when you pass in the proper flag to the command. We're working on using this in other areas. We're exploring things like dump compression and various other backup type of operations as well. So we'll look forward for that in the next upcoming releases. Next, we wanted to show you the slide that talks about AIX and Power 10. And the message here is that with AIX and a Power 10 system, you have the flexibility to realize all the benefits of Power 10 and choose your AIX version and the processor mode that you want to use. So you may want to choose P9 mode because you have P9 systems in your environment. You want to be able to LPM between them versus choosing P10 mode. And this kind of shows you what the benefits are between the various modes. And just an example, with 7.1, even on 7.1 on Power 10, you can still scale up the environment to 1,024 hardware threads. Of course, with 7.2, there's an increased limit, and then 7.3 supports the largest configuration possible on Power 10, which is 1,920 hardware threads or 240 cores. And then we wanted to take a moment. We got a couple of questions ahead from some people that are interested in migration to AIX 7.3. So we wanted to go through this. You can migrate directly from AIX 6.1, 7.1, 7.2 to AIX 7.3. To do this, you need to do a migration install such as a traditional migration via, booting off of one of the volume 1 ISO DVD image. You can also do this through NIM or NIM ADM. And one clarification is that if you take take the image and you do an update all operation, that is not a supported way to move between version release upgrades. The update all will not apply when the version or release number has changed in the operating system. Another thing to note is that the size of the boot logical volume, there's a word missing here. This should say that AIX 7.3 requires a 40 megabyte boot logical volume. So that's been increased with AIX 7.3 as well. And one tip is that if you want to check for issues before migration, you can copy the pre-migration script that's mentioned here. It comes on the install media over to your system, and you can run it locally. And that will tell you whether there's any errors that would prevent the migration from succeeding, and gives you a pre-check that you can run before you actually go and do the migration. There's also a AIX migration planning workshop that is an offering from IBM lab-based services that you can take advantage of as well, and they'll meet with you and consult with you and walk through how what the various options are and how to successfully do a migration to 7.3. And then finally, we wanted to mention that VIOS, there was a question about whether VIOS 2.6 would be supported with 7.3. And the reality here to realize about VIOS is 2.6 reached end of life in 2020. And I also note that 3.10, the first release of VIOS 3.1 reaches end of life this month as well. So you really need to be moving up to a newer version of VIOS. We're going to talk a little bit about the AIX 7.3 open beta program. We wanted to show you we do have over 200 users signed up for the open beta so far. We're encouraging everyone to come and sign up and participate in it that possibly wants to or can. We have gotten some really good feedback through the open forum that's part of the open beta program that you can get advantage to once you sign up for the program. So we're getting good feedback about the changes. They're positive in AIX 7.3. We have found a couple of minor issues through the forum as well that have been fixed in 7.3. So that experience for us is very beneficial as well. It helps us kind of see how you're trying to use 7.3 and make sure that it's going to work well for those customers that are part of the open beta program. So we want to make sure it's the strongest possible product, and this program helps us do that, while it also lets you get an early look at it before it becomes available. So next, we'd like to go through a couple of polling questions. Joe, if you could bring up this question. It has to do with the 7.3 features that we talked about. So we're interested to know, which 7.3 features you feel are the highest interest to your organization. The DLPAR CPU and RAM performance enhancements, Python being included and supported as a part of AIX, the increased JFS2 file system and file capacities up to 128 terabytes, as well as
so I'm not sure.
Encryption. Yep.
I'm not sure if everybody can see it since you're sharing and I'm not.
Oh, okay. So we were trying to figure this out earlier. It looks like you put it up and I have to submit it.
I see it, Joe.
So
Joe, this is
you do
Carl. I
see
can
it.
see the
I
poll.
see it as well.
Okay.
Okay. And then we talked about an increased number of threads and cores available, the new TCP cubic algorithm, gzip, bash, and the reduced AIX boot time. So Joe, do we want to wait a minute or so?
Yeah, we can wait a little bit here. About 30% have finished it. There's still some people who are in progress. So we'll just give that just a little bit longer. So we're waiting here. Brian, are you able to open it there? Do you see the open pane now? Maybe next time we'll just have you look quick before we do it.
Yeah, we've got another one here after this one finishes. I don't currently see the way to open it up.
Okay. So about half have finished it. So it's just going a little bit more.
Oh, Carl, in the meantime, are there any questions that we could address? Maybe one question.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get through many of them, Brian, but let me. Question here, maybe you can answer, Brian. So one question is the boot time dependent on the amount of devices and RAM? How many devices did the AIX 727? So in the data we showed, how many devices we had configured on those tests for reduced boot time?
I don't know how many devices we had configured. What we did for that feature is we went through and measured the performance of various components, and we did not find that the number of devices had a huge impact on how long it took to boot with a normal good configuration. The devices actually get configured in parallel when AIX boots up. And what we did do though on the side of I/O configuration, especially for disk devices, is we did make some improvements so that when you have a bunch of SAN errors, we made some improvements in the drivers to in the configuration code to ensure that if something just kept timing out, we would move on past it quicker and not hang in the boot as long. But I don't think we've been able to measure that type of environment with a large number of devices. The primary areas that we focused on was memory initialization and the trace subsystem. Takes a long time to come up and configure because we have a per CPU memory buffer, and that was being done on a per CPU basis in a serial form, so we parallelized that as well. And that's what gave us the boost that we see in the AIX boot time. So the number of devices shouldn't, comparatively between 7.2 and 7.3 should not make a difference.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Okay, Brian, we've got about 360 people that have done it, so I went ahead and closed the poll.
Okay. So the next poll is regarding the open beta program. What we'd like to know is if if you're currently participating in the open beta, or if you plan to, or if you're not interested in participating in the open beta.
Open beta poll. Do you want me to start that one then?
Yes.
Yeah, just one question I see here. I'll just comment on verbally. There's a question about hardware gzip compression with the copy and the SCP commands. We did enhance the SSH package on AIX earlier this year. I think it was actually in January, so that SCP now is hardware gzip aware and can use hardware compression. The copy command we don't have any sort of compression option with the copy command, so that wouldn't apply. And there's a question here, is MFA for AIX available without Power SC? No, you have to have a third-party product for that. Power SC is one. I believe there's one other ISV solution out there that provides an MFA capability with AIX. Question about testing 6.1 and 5.3, those releases are end of life, so no.
Yes, all right.
All right, so this poll is easier, everybody. Should be able to get that quick. And we can close it.
And then there's a question about Bash included with AIX 7.3. So Bash is included with 7.3. It's supported just like the rest of AIX, within the constraints of, we do depend on open communities to provide resolutions or accept potential patches from us. And it will be, it will be maintained, as 7.3 continues to release TLs and SPs. It is one area where we're not able to adhere to our binary compatibility guarantee because we don't control the open community. So as we look at picking up fixes and changes to Bash in the future, it does have the impact to affect binary compatibility for the shell.
All right,
Hey,
Brian,
Carl,
I closed the poll as well.
Carl, there's a question. Are you planning to use the gzip compression for CP and SCP commands in the future?
Yeah, I answered that one.
Oh, did you?
Maria.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, verbally.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
All right, so let's move on. We want to talk a little bit about open source and other open technology. As most of you are aware of, the AIX has an open source toolbox that's available, and there's a link down at the bottom of the page here for that. We continue to expand and support the usage of open source on AIX, and over the last few years, we have accelerated the use of open technology in AIX to modern operating system as well. We have over 350 open source packages in the toolbox. You can see some of the categories for those here, as well as the building blocks for installation and patching use cases. One thing we want to note is that we have moved from using Yum to DNF as the supported package installer for open source on AIX. That's because Yum has, I believe, it relies on the older version of Python, and DNF takes advantages of the current in support versions of Python. Of course, we also have support for Ansible, which we'll talk a little bit about. And you can use Cloud Init is included, is included in the toolbox for AIX, so you can use that in your own cloud deployments, especially if you use the cloud ready image that you can get for AIX that comes with Cloud Init pre-installed, so you can use that directly with Power VC to deploy that image and customize it. On the machine learning side, there's also Python machine learning packages available. We do work to keep the packages current with updates throughout the year and security fixes. So when the community finds a security exposure and finds a solution for it, we work with the community to get that into the open source toolbox as quickly as we can. There's also an open source forum that you can participate in on the IBM community site. That is the place to go to find out the latest information on open source with AIX. You can request new packages there. If there's a package you think should be in the toolbox that's not there, or if one you think is outdated and needs to be updated, that's the place to come and communicate and talk to us about that. Of course, you can also ask questions and get answers there. It's also where the team puts up notifications of security updates, as well as when they port a new package or update a package and make it available. This shows some of the current work that we're doing in the open source toolbox. We are working to get the latest version of GCC with Power 10 support into the toolbox, as well as working with Open Blast to support the usage of the Power 10 Matrix Math Accelerator, as well as the Python machine learning packages and inferencing stacks. I'll also note that we're also working with AIX to get it to take advantage of MMA as well. This also shows some of the new recent packages that we've updated in the toolbox. And in the last few months, we have reviewed over 400 CVEs or security exposures, and we've updated roughly 70 packages due to security vulnerabilities. At the bottom of this slide, there is a link to the 7.3 announcement, which has more details on toolbox changes. So around Ansible, we do have packages for AIX as well as the iOS and HMC in Ansible Galaxy. This shows a view of some of the packages that are available for AIX and Galaxy. We have seen quite a bit of uptake in customers downloading packages. We're now over 24,000 downloads, and I think we've kind of accelerated to maybe even 1,000 downloads a week now in the last couple of weeks. With Ansible, what we've done is a couple of years ago, we switched away from focusing kind of across various different automation frameworks to just focusing on Ansible. This is an IBM-wide strategy, to align with Ansible, especially with Red Hat and the Red Hat Automation Hub. And the packages are available in Galaxy, free to download and use as open source. If you have a subscription to Red Hat Automation Hub, you can also download them through the Red Hat Automation Hub, and they come with full Red Hat and IBM support. So if you want support for the packages we have available for Ansible, the way to get that is to go through the Red Hat Automation Hub. And then I believe, Maria, you're going to talk to us about the edition bundles as well as licensing and a couple other topics.
Right, yep. Okay, thanks, Brian. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about our bundles. These are the Enterprise Edition and Cloud Edition bundles. These are the bundles that are designed to help rapidly deploy your own Power Private Cloud infrastructure, and they're more cost effective as well. So just a kind of a brief overview here. You can buy AIX 7.3 or any version of standalone through Standard Edition. If you want to take advantage of one of the bundles, you can upgrade to Enterprise Edition and get the Power SC 2.0. So this is the version that has standard plus MFA that I mentioned earlier. And then also an update that's coming in December will be the VM Recovery Manager 1.6 with some new enhancements there. And then along with that, with both bundles, you get Power VC for private cloud management, and then Tivoli monitoring for monitoring. We are looking forward ahead to maybe looking at a newer monitoring product, but that's something that may come next year. If you want to move more into a hybrid cloud type installation, you can upgrade your current Enterprise Edition to Enterprise Cloud Edition, and then you would get access to the Aspera high-speed transfer product to help you transfer files in your hybrid environment between on-prem and off-prem. Also, VM Recovery Manager comes with a DR component. So the Cloud Edition gives you the enhanced version that includes both HA and DR. And again, that comes with the Power SC 2.0 as well, and Cloud Management Console to help you manage that your private cloud infrastructure. One thing I want to mention, I think we have questions about this, but if you have any of these bundles or either of these bundles, at any time you can go in and download these new products. So Power SC 2.0 was announced. So if you're using Enterprise Edition, you can go into ESS, the entitled System Support site and download Power SC 2.0 from there. So that's a benefit of having the bundles. Whenever we make an update, you're entitled to get those updates. You know, whether it's adding a new product or updating an existing product. And the other thing I want to mention here is that we have added a subscription license to AIX Enterprise Edition and Cloud Edition. So I've added in the light blue, you can see the new product IDs for subscription licenses. So you know, we know that customers are moving to this subscription kind of model to have a more OpEx model versus capital. And so, you know, we're making these available. We won't change the perpetual licensing model, but we will make this available as a different way of consuming the software. Let's see, go ahead and go to the next slide, Brian. This is just a little bit more, you know, in a table format view of the different licensing options. So we have the perpetual, which is sort of the buy model, traditional buy model. We have the monthly licenses, and that's only available in standard edition. And that's really more, you know, it's more like a rent model. So if you just need it for a short time, you know, 3 months, 6 months to complete a migration, you can use the monthly licenses. They do have a pretty low, you know, entry cost for the month, but they do the long-term TCO is higher. So you know, we offer the subscription licenses, which is more of a lease kind of option, where over time you will see a benefit in the pricing versus just repeatedly buying monthly licenses. The subscription licenses are available in 1 or 3 year terms. At the end of the term, you have that flexibility to purchase another 3 year term or another 1 year term, you know, or move to a perpetual model if it's something that you were trying out and you decide you want to move to a more perpetual model. So there's a lot of advantages in the model. Our buyer behavior study that was done last year shows that about 43% of server and storage clients are interested in moving to this kind of model over the next 3 years. So again, it's not our, you know, primary lead with strategy. It's just available for those organizations that are looking into that type of model for consuming software. So let's see, next slide, please. So this is just a little bit more on AI and our AI strategy that I mentioned at the beginning of the, you know, in our strategy slide. So with the introduction of Power 10 and the new MMA accelerators that are built in each Power 10 core, we're now really focusing more on how can we enable in-core AI inferencing and machine learning with AIX 7.3. So, you know, as the world is really looking at deploying AI everywhere, you know, how can we enable our clients to leverage the data that they have and rapidly implement these different AI models against that data on the same platform. So there, you know, the advantage of this is, you know, you can perform the inferencing in core, don't have to move it away, you know, off of the system or, you know, move the data to the inferencing or the other way around. It provides an alternative to using GPU systems. The support for popular Python packages, you know, we still have that directly on AIX 7.3, and that's what we're working on in the toolbox that Brian mentioned. So this 10x here is a benchmark that was done recently with DB2 and H2O driverless AI. I've included a link there to you know, how this tutorial was ran in case anybody wants to try it. There's some step-by-step instructions there, which, you know, basically what they did was loaded some training and test data into DB2 running on AIX, and then they created multiple scoring pipelines on a adjacent Linux partition, you know, pulling data from DB2, and then created the scoring pipelines from AIX to the H2O product. So the inferencing was run on AIX, and you could see in this model they were able to get a 10x improvement there over running it on a different platform. So there's a link to a tutorial there if you want more information on that. On the next slide, I see, I have a contact name there as well. So Raj Krishnamurthy is our enterprise AI product manager. So, to help us further this overall enterprise AI strategy, we are working directly with the University of Oregon on a center for enterprise AI exchange. And so this center was set up for students, researchers, and center partners to explore and experiment with AI problems and create solutions to drive smarter business outcomes. So this is a collaboration, that will bring students together with partners and researchers. Students can, work on improving their AIX skills. Partners can explore, different use cases, and researchers can partner together with the students and the partners, around this, and all with the same goal of driving smarter business outcomes. So there's a blog here. I put the link there that was written by Raj Krishnamurthy, who I mentioned is our enterprise AI product manager. And I think you'll hear a lot more about this year. So, if you're interested, you can check out the blog there. Next slide. So as part of our hybrid cloud strategy that I mentioned, as part of our overall AIX strategy, we want to make sure that AIX is available in or out of the data center. So AIX can be run, of course, standalone on your own Power server through a traditional deployment, through our Power Private Cloud with dynamic capacity offering, or Pools 2.0 is what it's referred to as. And both of those you can use as cloud management console to manage that, that private cloud. You can extend that off to Power Virtual Server to move off-prem if you need to, and then you can manage everything with Ansible. So this is kind of an overall, hybrid strategy that we have with AIX for running, either in or out of the data center. Next slide. So this is just a little on the Power Virtual Server. I mentioned as part of the open beta that you can run AIX in Power Virtual Server off-prem within the IBM Cloud. So this is just kind of a high-level slide. You can purchase AIX or IBM or Linux VMs, VM as a service, and IBM manages up to the OS deployment, and then the client manages the OS and up. So in the box there, you see just some details on what you can purchase in Power Virtual Server. Right now, Power Virtual Server is available in 14 data centers around the world, and we've got 150 plus clients that have moved to Power Virtual Server, either production, pre-production, HADR, things like that. There's a tutorial that Nigel, I know everybody here probably knows Nigel Griffiths. I think he's a regular speaker here, but he put together a tutorial on how to run AIX and Power Virtual Server for $3 a day. This is actually a 6-part series on his YouTube channel. So it's very interesting. He's gone through all the work to figure out, how to easily deploy AIX. And so if you're interested, you could take a look at that. And I didn't mention it here, but again, just a reminder, if you are interested in trying out the open beta, you can do it in Power VS and either try out this $3 a day, approach, or sign up for the $1,500 credit and get $1,500, which probably sounds like a better deal. But both of those are available. Okay, I think next slide, Brian. I think we have a couple more polling questions, and just some resources. And so I am very interested in what your organization's interest is in a subscription licensing model with AIX, AIX Enterprise Edition or Enterprise Cloud Edition. So just high level, how interested are you, or is your organization in the subscription licensing?
So I opened the poll.
Oh, thank you. So we'll just wait a minute. I don't think this one will take very long. Are there any other questions that we can address in the meantime?
Maria, there was a question on the end of marketing, end of support, end of life terminology that we use. And so maybe we should just clarify that. I mean, we know end of marketing, we no longer sell it, right? It's still supported, but not sold. For example, Power 8 systems, we don't sell anymore, but we still support them. You want to talk a little bit about what in the AIX, what all that means?
Yeah, so that's correct. End of marketing means it's no longer orderable. It'll still be supported. Once we announce end of marketing, we will still support it through the standard service for at least minimum of 1 year. And in general, it usually works out to be about a year and a quarter or something based on the way our announcements are lined up. So you still get support, you know, for that remaining term, and then it goes into end of standard support. And then for some time after that, we go into a fee-based service extension mode. That's usually another 2 to 3 years. And then after that point, it becomes end of life. So that's the different terminology there. And I think I included a link on the release stream page. I think that you can get to this information there as well. I have to go back and double check which link, but this is all available on the website. Okay. All right, so I think we can go to the next poll. I guess, can we move to the next polling question, Joe?
Yep, sure. I'll close the poll and
yeah,
we'll move on.
Yeah, I think there from the life cycle link at the bottom left, I think you can get to this information, but I will double check that. And if not, I'll make sure to include a link to that information. So, you know, as part of our hybrid strategy, I'm also very interested, you know, in your organization's interest in running AIX off-prem and Power Virtual Server. So it's the same question. Are you already running in Power Virtual Server off-prem? Are you planning on it? Are you running AIX off-prem elsewhere? Or not sure, you need more details, or not interested? So just looking for some general idea of where our customers are running AIX and what we can help you with if it's something that you are interested in moving towards in the future.
Okay, so I've opened that poll now.
Okay. All right, so while that runs, we can go to the next slide. I just have a couple other sort of resources and announcements. So I mentioned earlier that we brought back the certification program. So this very exciting, you know, news for us. The AIX certification program had a lot of participants, and then we sort of stopped it for a while and moved to more of a badge kind of a strategy. Then we found out that, you know, customers really were more interested in the certifications. And so we have the new AIX Foundations specialty exam, the Power HA System Mirror for AIX, and Power VC 2.0 exams available now. We are working on some others next year, so we'll probably look at doing an AIX Advanced, an IBM I, and a Power SC as well. So those are there. The links are there, you know, for more information if you're interested in any of those. These were written, for the most part, our IBM champions helped us with these. So we had great, you know, great volunteers, and we have a lot of industry insight into these exams. Next slide.
I'm going to go ahead and close the poll that was up there.
Thank you, Joe. So the next slide is just a list of resources that I put together that have the announcement links for each of the announcements, AIX announcements, the announcement blogs. There's a new Tech Channel article that was written under the blog heading there. There's an Oracle paper that was written, Modernizing Oracle Database on Power. There's also the link there again to the open beta program. So again, just a lot of resources here. And if you're not already a part of our LinkedIn discussion groups, we've got some information there on the different discussion groups. And I think there's just one more slide, Joe. Or I guess Brian's controlling it.
Okay.
So
good.
yeah, so this is, yeah, sorry about that. So this may be old news now, but you know, we moved our DeveloperWorks community to IBM Community Space. So if you haven't already joined, you know, this is the link at the bottom of the page. From there, you can get to the AIX Community Space, or you can join the AIX Open Source Community Space. So that replaces the former DeveloperWorks open source forum. So this is where Brian mentioned that you can ask questions, get help. We make announcements on, package updates and things like that. So just another reminder on that, since that change was made, I think, earlier this year. I think that was the last chart I have. Are there any more questions that we can answer? I haven't been able to look at the Q&A, so if there's anything, let me know.
Carl or Brian, have you been watching the Q&A?
Yeah, I've been watching it. Maria, you may have more insight into some of these these later questions. One of the questions is, are the certifications going back to proctored?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, they are all proctored exams now. So if you go back 2 slides, Brian, sorry, I forget who was running the screen show, but yeah, they are administered by our Connected Credentials program. They are all proctored. The comprehensive final proctored assessment, is made at the end of the learning path. So we do provide learning material. There's a sample test exams there as well. You can take the sample exam first, and then you can, take the proctored exam.
And then there's a question in here, is there an open AIX lab available? VMware has an option that folks can use to try out their product. So if you're an ISV or a solution provider, there may be resources in IBM that you can get access to certify your products, or to try them out. What I would suggest is send an email to Maria and myself, and we will try to connect you to our director of the Power Ecosystem team.
Right. Yeah, that's right, Carl. And then, also right now there is still the opportunity of trying out the open beta. So you can, sign up for that and run that in Power Virtual Server if you'd like to try it. So that'll give you a little bit of experience on Power Virtual Server, in the cloud, as well as the new AIX release. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah, I see a question there. We don't have a separate subscription license for Power SC, but if you have Enterprise Edition, you can get Power SC with that. Enterprise Edition is actually our most popular bundle, and it really gives you access to trying these different products as well. So and it is, if we found that with the pricing, if you want to use like 2 of the products, then it's more cost effective to just go with the Enterprise Edition. So you may want to look at the pricing on that and see how that fits in with what you're trying to do.
Okay. So I don't know, Carl, are there more questions we want to bring up?
I don't think so, Joe. I don't know that we got to every one of them, but we tried to get to a lot of them.
Yeah. So here's, I've seen this a couple of times about VIO 3.1.3.x. Is it based on AIX 7.3? All the VIOS 3.x versions are all based on AIX 7.2. So there isn't any VIOS that's based on 7.3 yet. I'm not sure when we'll move to that.
Yeah, that question had come up earlier, and I had answered it. So we are in the lab. We're assessing the time frame when we will shift VIO to 7.3. We will eventually do that. We're just looking at, when that will be, and I expect it'll happen within the next year or 2.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to say a thank you to Maria, Brian, and Carl. All of you, thanks so much for putting this together. A lot of information here. a ton of questions, which were great. Carl, thank you for being in there answering those. I'm pretty sure we would not have gotten to very many of them without you there. And you guys are just a wealth of experience and a great team for our clients. So thank you very much.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yes,
Thanks,
everyone.
So everybody on the VUG, we do have yet the November virtual user group webinar is going to be just before Thanksgiving, so it's going to be on the 18th. I'll send out some invites here in the next week or so, but we have a topic lined up for that, and you'll see that coming soon. All right, so thanks everybody, and have a great fall.